بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين أجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف اللهم أخرجني من ظلمات الوهم وأكرمني بنور الفهم اللهم افتح علينا أبواب رحمتك وانشر علينا خزائن علومك برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. خب, alhamdulillah, we have tawfiq to continue our study of Ma'arif al-Qur'an by the late Ayat Misbah. After discussing free will and then answering to questions and replying to the objections raised by those who believe in determinism or jabr in 2 sessions, as you remember. Now we want to go to the next topic, which is shanakht, which is knowledge, which is understanding. So basically, what we need in order to exercise our free will is to have some options. You cannot choose without having options. 2, to have desires for more than one option, for conflicting options or different options. If you don't have desires for none of them or for some of them, those things will not be chosen. 3rd is free will, to be able to choose. And this needs knowledge, because on what basis you want to choose? You have to know these options. You have to know the benefits, harms. And then power. I want to do something, but externally also I should have power. Internally I should have power, but externally also I should have power. I should have ability. For example, you think about, I don't know, building a mosque. So you should have desires that would be for or against this, or for this, or for a conflict option. Desire for making this money, for example, for building a house for yourself, or I don't know, investing, saving, whatever. So there are different things, different desires, but you have free will to choose. But you need also knowledge. Why, it's good to build a mosque. Why, for example, it is good to make another thing, or if they are not good, why this is good, this is bad, or why this is good, this is better, or this is priority, this is not priority. Plus, if you have all the reasons to build a mosque, but you know that there is no land, or they don't give you permission, or they don't let you to complete the building, for example, they are going to stop and all the time, attack, etc. If you don't have external ability, again, you are not going to go for this option. Then you will see what option is the next. So we need all kinds of conditions to be available. In this section, we talk about shanakht or knowledge. We have already talked about free will. After shanakht, we will talk about those desires that are in human beings. And then external power is very diverse, very deep, wide topic, and not necessarily related to our discussion, how to do things, accomplished, or how to make things, work out in the real world, external world, In every society, every time, there may be different procedures sometimes for making things. The first thing that Ayat Misbah mentions to begin this discussion is Ayatul Amana. Surah Al-Ahzab, verse 72. The famous ayah, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم إنا عرضنا الأمانة على السماوات والأرض والجبال فأبين أن يحملنها وأشفقن منها وحملها الإنسان إنه كان ظلوما جهولا. Mufassirin have lots of discussions about this ayah. It's a very important ayah. One area that is very much discussed is what is meant by amana. Amana, literally we know, there is no ambiguity. Amana means trust. But what this amana refers to in this ayah, especially when Allah says, this was presented to the skies, to the earth, to the mountains. It was presented to them. And secondly, after it was presented to them, they refused to accept it. Not out of, protest or rebellion. No. أشفقن منها. They were afraid that they are not able to cope with it, they are not able to do justice with this. So this is an amana which was presented to the sky and the earth and the mountain. This is an amana that they refused to accept, and they had worry. أشفقنا منها وحملها الإنسان. But mankind accepted this. In practice, إنه كان ظلوما جهولا. Although accepted, but couldn't do justice with this amana as a, humanity, not individuals. So what is this amana? Some people have said this amana is our responsibility or our ikhtiyar, free will. So responsibility, free will. Some people have said taklif, obligation. Some people have said this is wilaya, acceptance of wilaya. So different things have been said. Ayat Misbah says, no matter how this is understood, this amana, definitely it is related to ikhtiyar and taklif, to free will and obligation or responsibility. It's free will and responsibility, maybe something else, maybe something that implies this, maybe something which is implied by this, but definitely these two are part of amana. Then he says, we are focusing now on one element of this process, or one element of this exercise of free will and fulfilling our duties or our taklif, which is shanakht. Shanakht is a condition. There are many verses of the Qur'an about this topic, and we refer to some of them, and we try to answer most important questions, not all the questions. He says, one of the verses which is very fundamental and very important about human understanding is this ayah, number 2 of Surah Al-Dahr, Surah Al-Insan. إِنَّا خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ مِن نُطْفَةٍ أَمْشَاجٍ نَبْتَلِيهِ فَجَعَلْنَاهُ سَمِيعًا بَصِيرًا. we have created man from a mixed nutfa, amshaj. We had this discussion before when we talked about the materials from which human beings are created. Nabtalih. Ibtila means to test, to try. We are going to test human beings. فَجَعَلْنَاهُ سَمِيعًا بَصِيرًا. So we made insan able to hear and able to see. So this ayah refers to human beings having mixed desires, mixed elements, which we need for choice, for selection, because we are not like angels that have only one choice, which is good choice. They are created the way that they just want good things. They desire good things. We are created in the way that we have different desires, different options, and this is amshaj because we are mixed. You can say we are aql and shahwa, you can say different things. Number two, nabtali, there is test. Test needs knowledge. You cannot test someone without knowledge. Remember in usul how much we discussed about qubhul iqab bila bayan. It's immoral to punish when the person doesn't know the duty. Without explaining, without communication, you cannot expect someone to do something and test him for that. So, جَعَلْنَاهُ سَمِيعًا بَصِيرًا. So human beings are made sami' and basir so that they can be making good choice when they are tested. The next ayah is Surah An-Nahl, verse 78. Famous ayah again. وَاللَّهُ أَخْرَجَكُم مِّن بُطُونِ أُمَّهَاتِكُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ شَيْئًا وَجَعَلَ لَكُمُ السَّمْعَ وَالْأَبْصَارَ وَالْأَفْئِدَةَ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَشْكُرُونَ. Allah brought you out of the wombs of your mothers while you don't know anything, and made for you ear, eyes, and hearts, so that you may be grateful. So there are questions here. For example, does human being lack all kinds of knowledge before birth, before khuruj min butun al-ummahat, before coming out, before delivery, before birth? La ta'lamuna shay'a. Does it mean you didn't know anything at all? Or it is about certain types of knowledge, certain types of people? So you can say no human beings had any knowledge. You can say some human beings had no knowledge at all, or some human beings had some knowledge and lacked some knowledge, but some human beings had lots of knowledge. So there can be differences between subjects, different types of knowledge, and different human beings. So did human beings lack all kinds of knowledge before birth? Is this applicable to all human beings, all individuals? For example, is it true also about the prophets, about imams? Number three, Allah says, جَعَلَ لَكُمُ السَّمْعَ وَالْأَبْصَارَ وَالْأَفْئِدَةَ. So is knowledge restricted, exclusive to what is achieved through ear, hearing, eye, seeing, and heart, or is more than that? And does sam and basar, ear and eye, do these refer to physical perception by ear for the sounds and by the eye for the sights and objects that we see? or it can be more than that. Why sam' is mufrad, is singular? جَعَلَ لَكُمُ السَّمْعَ, not asma'. But when it's coming to basar, says wal absar. When it comes to heart, says wal af'ida. Af'ida is plural form for fu'ad. Why basar and fu'ad are plural? Sam is singular. This is another question. What is fu'ad? What do we mean by fu'ad? So there are different questions, and we answer to those questions that are needed for our discussion and our, time allows for that. With respect to the question whether human beings lacked 100% completely knowledge before birth, so he says there are two ways to talk about this. One is to talk about ilm husuli, one is to talk about ilm huduri. Ilm husuli is through concept, through mental images in our mind. Hudur surat al-ma'lum lada al-alam, as we studied in philosophy. The image of what is known is present with the knower. Ilm huduri is hudur al-ma'lum lada al-alam, not hudur surat al-ma'lum lada al-alam. It can be your knowledge about yourself, your knowledge about your faculties, about your happiness, joy, fear, etc., and knowledge about your cause. So, according to philosophical discussions, every mujarrad, kullu mujarradin fahuwa aqil. Every mujarrad understands, is intelligent. So every mujarrad at least has ilm huduri about itself, at least. So when we say you didn't know anything, we are not denying ilm huduri. Number one. Number two, we are not denying that kind of knowledge that you may have unknowingly. Because, there are three types of knowledge. Sometimes knowledge is known to exist. So you have conscious knowledge. Means you know and you know that you know. In Farsi, he says, ilm agahane. So you are aware that you know something. Sometimes is nime agahane, semi-conscious. So you know, but you may not be paying attention, but if someone asks you, you say, yes, this is the answer. But if it is completely unconscious, na agahane. So it is not agahane, it's not nime agahane, it's na agahane. Means not conscious, not semi-conscious, it's just unconscious. There are things that we know, but we are not aware of that. And even if we are asked, we say, I don't know. Something maybe has happened to you in the past. You know it in your unconscious level. And actually maybe it's causing some issues with you now. Either good effect or bad effect. But you don't remember. And if you are asked, you say, I don't know. You know, but you don't think you know. So we have different types of knowledge. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لا تعلمون شيئا أخرجكم من بطون أمهاتكم لا تعلمون شيئا, this is not said in a philosophical language, which would then mean you didn't have knowledge by presence, you didn't have any kind of knowledge through concepts, you didn't have knowledge which is conscious, semi-conscious, unconscious. No. This is said in a language that people can understand, and not just for the philosophers. So the Quran itself confirms that we have some innate knowledge. For example, Surah A'raf, verse 172, Ayat Dhar. وَإِذْ أَخَذَ رَبُّكَ مِنْ بَنِي آدَمَ مِنْ ظُهُورِهِمْ ذُرِّيَّتَهُمْ وَأَشْهَدَهُمْ عَلَىٰ أَنفُسِهِمْ قَالَ أَلَسْتُ بِرَبِّكُمْ قَالُوا بَلَىٰ. So this knowledge is there. And تَقُولُ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ إِنَّا كُنَّا عَنْ هَذَا غَافِلِينَ. So it is knowledge. And based on this understanding, on the Day of Judgment, we cannot say we were, not aware, we were heedless. You could be very much aware of it. You could be very conscious of it. You could feel it with your fitrah. So, لا تعلمون شيء. I cannot certainly deny what the Quran itself is saying. So, لا تعلمون شيئا is referring to some types of knowledge that we didn't have. For example, what we are going to learn through our ears, through our eyes. And some of the things about the heart also. Inshallah, we talk about the heart. What we can understand with the heart, which is including ilm-huzuri, ilm-husuli both. Also, the ayah is not talking about all human beings. It's not saying kullu insanan hakada. Every human being is like this. In logic, we call such propositions qazayay muhmale. You remember? Qadiyya is sometimes kulliyya, sometimes is juz'iyya. But sometimes kulliyya or juz'iyya are not indicated. It's muhmale, means there is no sur, there is no indication of kulliyat or juz'iyat. Al-insan, we didn't say kullu insanan or ba'du insanan. It's muhmale, so it's not talking about all or some. Even if it was kull, it becomes am. Ma min ammin illa waqad khussa. Even if it is am, is generally speaking is like this, but there can be exceptions. So there is no then contradiction with what we have in some hadith that, for example, ma'sumin, even when they were in the wombs of their mothers, they were doing tasbih of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Of tasbih needs some understanding. This doesn't conflict with that. Even if we say ayah is talking about this kind of thing, because maybe ayah is not even talking about this kind of knowledge. But even if we say ayah is including this kind of knowledge, it's for general people, not all people. Now, what about af'idah? Fu'ad is synonymous to qalb. It seems, Ayatollah Misbah says, kalame fu'ad dar Quran mutaradif ba qalb. It's synonymous to heart or qalb in Quran. We can translate both of them as heart. Heart initially, literally refers to that physical organ that is an organ that's responsible for pumping blood into our body. But people in Urf, in common usage, they use it for the center, for understanding, for emotions, for feelings. And you know that how quickly our emotions, our feelings can be affected in the heartbeats. But Quran, at the same time that recognizes this connection in the minds of people, and that people use heart to refer to the organ, and also to the spiritual heart. Quran is aware, but for sure Quran is not using heart for this physical part. Quran accepts, recognizes that people use heart for both. But what Quran means by heart is different from the physical organ. The Quran means by heart that thing in us which is responsible for understanding, for desires, for virtues and vices, for iman and kufr and nifaq, etc. In Surah Al-Hajj, verse 46, Allah says, فَإِنَّهَا لَا تَعْمَى الْأَبْصَارِ وَلَكِنْ تَعْمَى الْقُلُوبُ الَّتِي فِي الصُّدُورِ. Those who cannot see the truth, it's not that their physical eyes are blind. No. Maybe their physical eyes are okay if it's very strong, actually vision they have, they don't even have glasses. Maybe there's nothing about their eyes, physical eyes. وَلَكِنْ تَعْمَى الْقُلُوبُ الَّتِي فِي الصُّدُورِ. But what is blind is the heart in their chest. So, similar to qalb, chest also can be used as part of our body, which supports heart and livers and our main internal organs. But it can also, like heart, be used for non-physical meaning, non-materialistic meaning. So heart or sadr can mean batin insan, our inner self. Many times sadr is used in this way. For example, in Surah Luqman, verse 23, Inna Allah alimun bizat as-sudur. Truly Allah is aware of what is inside sudur, inside chest. It doesn't mean inside physical chest, like what you, for example, can do CT scan or I don't know, X-ray, etc., to see what is inside, or MRI. No. Sadr here means batin, and whatever is inside, including heart. Allah is aware of that. So he says, در حقیقت قلب یعنی مرکز ادراک و صدر یعنی مرتبه از باطن. Heart is the center for idrak, for understanding, for feeling, for example. And sadr is for some level of batin, our inner self. But there is connection with the physical, of course. Heart, how, for example, one of the last organs in the body that loses activity when someone is dying is heart. Even they use many times, of course, maybe now with the brain waves we can better identify, but many times they listen to the heart. Is it beating or not? So definitely the Quran is not talking about the physical heart or physical chest, but there could be connections. In the Quran, we find that Allah attributes ta'aqqul, understanding, to the heart. Surah Al-Hajj, verse 46. أَفَلَمْ يَسِيرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ فَتَكُونَ لَهُمْ قُلُوبٌ يَعْقِلُونَ بِهَا بِهَذِهِ الْقُلُوبِ. Don't they move around and travel on the earth so that they can have hearts with which they can understand? It's power of traveling and preparation of the hearts for understanding. You may travel and don't get anything, but if you are traveling with open heart and open mind, you understand many things. Araf 179. وَلَقَدْ ذَرَأْنَا لِجَهَنَّمَ كَثِيرًا مِنَ الْجِنِّ وَالْإِنسِ لَهُمْ قُلُوبٌ لَا يَفْقَهُونَ بِهَا وَلَهُمْ أَعْيُنٌ لَا يُبْصِرُونَ بِهَا وَلَهُمْ آذَانٌ لَا يَسْمَعُونَ بِهَا. When it says they have hearts by which they don't have fiqh, means they don't have deep understanding, means heart is responsible. So لَهُمْ قُلُوبٌ يَعْقِلُونَ. Aql here is master, means to understand. And lahum qulubun la yafqahuna. There are also people that they have hearts that they don't understand with this. So fiqh, in sense of deep understanding, is also attributed to heart, although for some people they may not function. Another thing which is attributed to the heart is sentiments and emotions, positive or negative. For example, in Surah Al-Anfal, number 2, Allah says, إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ الَّذِينَ إِذَا ذُكِرَ اللَّهُ وَجِلَتْ قُلُوبُهُمْ. Wajal is attributed to the hearts. Believers are those that when Allah is mentioned, their hearts will be affected, will be humbled. Wajilat qulubuhum. Or negative, in Surah Zumar, verse 45, وَإِذَا ذُكِرَ اللَّهُ وَحْدَهُ, opposite to mu'mineen. Allah said there are people that إِذَا ذُكِرَ اللَّهُ وَحْدَهُ, when Allah is mentioned alone, اشْمَأَزَّتْ قُلُوبُ الَّذِينَ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْآخِرَةِ. Those who don't believe in the hereafter, their hearts will be upset, will be very sad, opposite to being positively excited. They are negatively affected. So heart is wajalat or ishma'azzat. In the story of Prophet Musa ala nabiyina wa alihi wa salam, in Surah Al-Qasas number 10, Allah said, وَأَصْبَحَ فُؤَادُ أُمِّ مُوسَى فَارِغًا إِنْ كَادَتْ لَتُبْدِي بِهِ لَوْلَا أَنْ رَبَطْنَا عَلَى قَلْبِهَا لِتَكُونَ مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. When mother of Musa alayhi salam was putting him in a casket and sending, and then guards and security people are after all the babies, after children, etc. So the mother of Musa, if was not supported by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, could not cope with this. And one aspect of not coping could be that she could talk about this. She couldn't keep this as a secret. But Allah says, رَبَطْنَا عَلَى قَلْبِهَا. We put together, we fastened her heart. So it shows that heart is where pressures, emotions are there, and they can sometimes break the heart or explode the heart. And the heart can also be very firm, intact, or it can be supported with Allah's ties of support, love, etc. So that condition of tranquility or stress all relate to heart. Heart is also place for iman. Surah Hujurat verse 7. And the ayah قالت الأعراب آمنا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in that ayah says that the place of heart is, the place of iman is heart. قولوا أسلمنا ولما يدخل الإيمان في قلوبكم قل لم تؤمنوا ولكن قولوا أسلمنا قالت الأعراب آمنا. But you say No, you have no Iman. You have Islam. Why? Because Iman has not entered your heart. Islam doesn't need to enter heart. Islam is declaration of unity of God and prophethood. But Iman, of course, Islam and Iman can be used in different senses, but here Islam is to say Shahadatain, to enter into the circle of Muslims. But Iman takes time or takes efforts. And it's a matter of heart. Also, heart can suffer from some illnesses, some disease. Sometimes heart cannot function because it's ill. Quran talks about zayg. Surah Al-Imran, verse 7. فَأَمَّا الَّذِينَ فِي قُلُوبِهِمْ زَيْغٌ فَيَتَّبِعُونَ مَا تَشَابَهَ مِنْهُ. But in the Quran we have muhkamat, we have mutashabahat. Those in whose hearts there is zayg, there is a kind of problem. It's not, their heart is not straight. Their heart suffers from some disease. They go after mutashabahat, after verses which can be interpreted in different ways, so that they use it for their own purpose. Or we say, رَبَّنَا لَا تُزِغْ قُلُوبَنَا بَعْدَ إِذْ هَدَيْتَنَا. Quran says, فِي قُلُوبِهِمْ مَرَضٌ فَزَادَهُمُ اللَّهُ مَرَضًا. Surah Baqarah, verse 10. Quran says, heart can be sealed. Surah Baqarah, verse 7. خَتَمَ اللَّهُ عَلَىٰ قُلُوبِهِمْ وَعَلَىٰ سَمْعِهِمْ وَعَلَىٰ أَبْصَارِهِمْ غِشَاوَةٌ. Or Surah Tawbah 87. وَطُبِعَ عَلَىٰ قُلُوبِهِمْ. Tab'a is like, khatm. It's like sealed. فَهُمْ لَا يَفْقَهُونَ. Or sometimes, other things are mentioned about the heart. For example, Surah Muttaffifin, verses 13 and 14. كَلَّا بَلْ رَانَ عَلَىٰ قُلُوبِهِمْ مَا كَانُوا يَكْسِبُونَ. So what they used to do has covered and, somehow like, erosions has covered their heart. Therefore, they cannot see the light of Allah, and reflect the light of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. إِنَّهُمْ عَنْ رَبِّهِمْ يَوْمَئِذٍ لَمَحْجُوبُونَ. They suffer from hijab. In Nahj al-Balagha, Amir al-Mu'minin says, لا تدركه العيون بمشاهدة العيان ولكن تدركه القلوب بحقائق الإيمان. So heart is the place for Iman, for, kufr, nifaq, etc. Heart is place for ilm huzuri, for ilm husuli. When we say تدركه القلوب بحقائق الإيمان, this is ilm huduri according to Ayat Misbah. It's not something that is through mind only. Then he says, when we study all these occurrences of the heart in the Quran, maybe we can make this conclusion that heart is not a specific faculty in us, like we say quvva aqila, etc. Heart is responsible for many things. Heart is responsible for understanding, responsible for virtues and vices, responsible for some of our sentiments and emotions, responsible for iman, kufr, and nifaq. So altogether, he says this sentence. This sentence is very important. قلب, پس قلب means soul, heart, عبارت است از نفس انسان از آن نظر که دارای ادراکات و احساسات و عواطف است. So heart is human soul, nafs, but from this perspective, from this aspect. Nafs, when we are talking about nafs as something responsible for idrakat, for our understanding, ihsasat, our sentiments, and awatif, emotions. حتی انتخاب و اختیار نیز در قرآن به قلب نسبت داده شد. Even free will and choosing and choices are attributed in the Quran to the heart. Quran Surah Baqarah verse 225 says, لا يؤاخذكم الله باللغو في أيمانكم. أيمان is plural for yamin in Assam. ولكن يؤاخذكم بما كسبت قلوبكم. كسبت قلوبكم, certainly it's related to the choices that you do with your heart. Or for example, Surah Ahzab verse 5, وَلَيْسَ عَلَيْكُمْ جُنَاهٌ فِيمَا أَخْطَأْتُمْ وَلَكِنْ مَا تَعَمَّدَتْ قُلُوبُكُمْ وَكَانَ اللَّهُ غَفُورًا. Those things that you do intentionally with your heart. So our three choices are attributed to heart. So he says, پس اگر بگوییم با توجه به موارد استعمال قرآن قلب مترادف است با آنچه در فلسفه به نام روح یا نفس نامیده می شود، گزاف نیست. So if we claim that based on the usage of heart in the Quran is what in philosophy is called spirit or soul, is not gazaf, it's not absurd, it's not baseless. تنها چیزی که میتوان گفت که به نفس نسبت داده می شود و به قلب نسبت داده نمی شود. The only thing that can be attributed to soul but is not attributed to the heart are physical actions, افعال بدنی. Because even, for example, when we move hands, when we walk, we talk, etc., we say these are also because of nafs. Therefore, when someone's nafs doesn't manage body, even if the body is okay, but when separation takes place, this person is not able even to talk. Nafs is responsible. نفس قوه‌ای عامل دارد که بدن را به حرکت وامی دارد. نفس has a power, a kind of faculty which is responsible for action, forces the body to move. This one is not attributed to the heart in the Quran, this aspect of nafs. So more towards non-bodily aspect. Because this part of nafs, although it is not about body, but it is nafs moving body. It seems this part is not attributed to heart in the Quran. پس هر چیزی که نوعی ادراک در آن ملحوظه, anything that involves some kind of understanding or understanding itself, or qualities of understanding, they are all attributed to heart. But if something has nothing to do with understanding, even because even ihsasat, sentiments, emotions, all have something to do with understanding. If something has nothing to do with understanding, we don't attribute it to the heart. So we have some more discussion, but it's salah time. Inshallah we can continue bismillah next week. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen.